somebody said, I'm about to land a job as an information system security officer with no degree and only a security plus. What's your advice? How long would you recommend it take to get the CISSP? That is a great question. That is a great question, because I literally have experience with that very thing that you're talking about. So something similar happened to me. So that I got a job when I first got out of the military. I did some straight up technical work. I was a field tech for like a year or two, and I liked it. It was fun, but it didn't pay that good. And they were kind of, for lack of a better word, they were assholes. So at the time, right? So shout out Northrop Grumman. So anyway, so I worked there for some time as a field tech, and I went back to my roots, which is information system security officer work. And they hired me for more money, but under the condition I would get a CISSP in 1 year. Right? Now we're getting back to your question here. So your question was, just so you guys know the context of what I'm talking about. He says, I got a job as an ISSO with no degree, just a security plus, and what's your advice? How long do you recommend I take to get the CISSP? Okay, so they told me, this organization that hired me, they said, look, you got 1 year to get the CISSP, and that's the condition that we're hiring you under. I said, cool. So I get in there and I work my ass off. So number one, work your ass off. You don't have a degree, you have a security plus, prove yourself, work your ass off. Work extra hours if you have to, get shit done on time, deliver it, do quality work, stuff like that, right? Work your ass. I worked my ass off. So at the end of the year, I did not have a CISSP. I was terrified to take it. I was terrified. I knew how hard it was, and I'm a terrible test taker. I'm really good at studying. I'm not a very good test taker, right? That's why I study so hard, because I'm not good. I second guess myself too much. I'll spend every minute, every second I can on the test. Anyway, after 1 year, I didn't have it, but I'd worked my ass off. So they're like, look, we want to keep you, but you still don't have your CISSP, and you have to get the CISSP. They said, look, when are you going to get the CISSP? And I said, look, I was honest. I said, look, I don't feel like I'm ready. I've been studying, but I just don't feel like I'm ready yet. So how about this? I offered, I said, look, let me take the security plus first, and then after that, that will prepare me for the CISSP. And I was right. That's exactly what I did. So they gave me 6 months to take the security plus. I took the security plus, studied for it, took it, passed it. And then after that, they're like, okay, now you got to get CISSP, right? There's no joke. You got to get it. So I gave myself another 6 months, and then I studied, took the CISSP, and passed it. So it depends on how you study. It depends on how you learn, how quickly you memorize stuff, how quickly you, right, what are your study, are they going to send you to a boot camp? Like, there's a lot of different factors. But for me, I can just tell you my experience, Josh, and maybe that will give you some idea what you can do for yourself. I had, at the time, did not have a security plus. I had a degree. It was a reverse for me. To be honest with you, security plus helped me much more than my degree. My experience and my security plus helped me quite a bit. My experience helped the most. Like, my experience was like, I was literally going through the test and I was like, this happened to me before. And I was figuring stuff out by my experience. So, but then also security plus also prepared me, because the common body of knowledge is so in depth that it allowed me to say, okay, I remember this on security plus. It's very similar, right? So I was able to answer questions that way too. So what I did was I took probably from the time security plus to the time I got the CISSP, I took like a solid year studying it. And what I did was I got the official book, and then I annotated the book. Like, I went through and I took notes. I went section by section, each domain, and I took the most important thing out of each domain, cut out the fluff, and I wrote that into a book of notes. And the way that I wish I could show you how I write notes, because the way I do it is just the practice. I write myself it's almost like a Q&A, right? Based off of keywords. I should probably teach this. It really works. I can show you real quick. Let me see. So I took a notebook similar to this. And what I did was, I know how my brain works, right? It's really important to know how your brain works, how you learn, right? In other words, how you learn. Like, are you a visual learner? Are you an audio learner? Are you a tactile learner? Or kinetic learner? Like, do you learn by writing? I learn mostly by writing and visual. I knew that. So I knew I can't write every word in the CISSP book, right? That's going to take way too long. Everything I write down, though, I remember it. So what I did was I took a notebook like this. I folded the page in half. I can't remember where I learned this from. Some college course or something. I fold it in half like this. I fold the paper in half like this. Right? And then what I do is I only stick with most important things. How do you know what's the most important things? You go domain by domain and focus paragraph per paragraph. Each paragraph is going to have a main topic. The main topics are the things that you want to focus on. Everything comes back to the main topic, right? Those are the things you have to memorize in some way, shape, or form. So here's how I did it. Let's see something I know. Risk management framework, right? So let's say I needed to know about risk management framework. That's on the test, by the way. Risk management framework stuff is on the test. A little bit of it is on the test. Security compliance. So let's say they wanted to know, like they had in the book, it's talking about risk management, it's breaking all the steps down, security compliance, right? You're going to have to know the steps of risk management framework, for example. So what I would do is on this side, I would put the main topic, which would be, say, risk management framework, risk RMF. I'll put RMF steps right here. I put RMF steps on this side of the line. Remember I folded the page in half? On this side I put risk management steps. Now there's 7 steps, right? At the time 6 steps. But there's 7, however many steps there are, right? There's 7 steps. So I would put give myself a keyword, 7. And then on this side I put each step. You know, you got preparation, you got categorization, and blah, blah, blah. 7 different ones. The reason why I split it in half is because when I'm practicing, when I'm going through my notes, what I would do is I'd cover this side up, and then I would have to memorize the 7 steps. On this side, it kind of has a prompt, like the keyword, right? On this side, I have the keyword, and then I would cover this side up to memorize the 7 steps. And I would do that with each category. I would do that with another one you got to learn is TCP/IP stack, right? I would say something like OSI model on one side, and then I would put 7, right? Because there's 7 layers of the OS. I'm mixing those things up. The OSI model. I would have to know there's an application layer, a transportation layer, and internet layer. I'm mixing them all up. A data link layer, a physical layer. You know what I'm talking about. On one side, I have all the answers, and one side, I just have a keyword where I have to know that keyword. That's a key topic that I got from that domain, from that paragraph. And now I have to know the TCP/IP stack, which is data link layer, and then transportation layer and session layer, or whatever it is, right? On this other side, I would cover this when I'm actually practicing. I'd cover one side up, and then I would see if I memorized that other side. That's what I would do, and it took me I did that for a year. You probably don't need a year, man. Like I'm an exception to the rule. I'm not a good test taker, so I overstudy to compensate for my inabilities as a test taker, and it ends up being that I'm a good test taker because I'm a good study. I know how my brain works. I know my memory is not the greatest, so I know how to train myself, and that's just Josh. That's what I would you probably won't need, because you already have a security plus. You already have the position. You probably don't need. I would say at least 6 months, but you probably don't need a year. So I hope that helps. Now I'm just telling you what I did. It says thank you so much. That was very helpful, and I taught note taking like that in high school. Okay, yeah, I learned my by experience writing over and over again. Yeah, me too. Yeah, I would just write, especially like real hard concepts. For me, like the cryptography section was such a hard. It's so dry. Like it was my. I hated that section, right? And then another thing I would do, Josh, is I would focus on all the sections I hated the most. Like I hated cryptography. There's so much stuff you got to memorize, and I just don't know that stuff. I don't do that on a regular. I mean, I was like a ComSec officer where you have to know a little bit of that stuff, and then sometimes you run into it with like vulnerability management stuff. Like if there's a vulnerability where there's a crypto key that's out or something, you got to know the difference between a DES, triple DES, and like AES or something. At the time, I really didn't know any of that stuff, so I just focused on that one a lot because I really didn't know it. So any of the domains that you really don't know, that you have no experience on, that are really hard for you, focus on those the most. That's what I did. So hope that helps. All right, let me see. Keep going through these questions. LOL, cryptography and handshakes are the worst. Oh, handshakes, man, you're gonna need that one. Handshakes, the TCP/IP stuff is deep, but that stuff comes back, man. The stuff cryptography is like, that comes back every now and then. But man, let me tell you something. TCP/IP, that stack, the handshake, the whole three-way handshake, all that. The more you know that, the better you'll be at networking stuff. It goes into forensics. It ties into so many other things. So know that one.